Alright, let's get into the nonsense, shall we?
If you don't like Michael's ad transitions, you are indeed transphobic. So true. I'm so glad someone is finally calling this out. You know, the left is always redefining terms. So let's redefine that term right now too. If you don't like my ad transitions, you are a vile transphobe.
I have to admit, guilty as charged, I do not like his transitions of ads because I have my own ads, I have my own sponsors, I have my own commercials. I do not need his to invade mine, okay? It's about fairness, people. It's about fairness. So yes, I am a rapid transphobe for ads that are not mines, even though mines are the losers in this case. I guess that's a little bit more realistic to the realities of trans people in women's sports.
Like sleeping easy at night, being a trans.
Nope, nope. See, this is what I'm talking about. They just invade. They just this transitionism, just goodness. And I have a comment on that, kinda like goodness. Calm down, seriously. Ugh. If you don't like Michael Knowles' ass, then you're a transphobe. I'm chewing gum because I got a little bit something here, so it's kind of helping me out. But I'm healed and made whole in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. And the reason why he's making fun of words changing. Hold up. Alright. Might be able to hear me better now. Kinda. What? The reason why he's making fun of words changing is because if words are changing by the left, because words are changing by the left. So therefore, if you don't like Michael Knowles' ads, it's because you're transphobic, because words change, because some words change, doesn't mean that since that's the case, therefore, open season on words, like a transition from fascist conservative or conservative liberal, that doesn't mean that I'm trans. There's a difference. Michael Knowles and the right just doesn't understand what words mean, basically. Most of the time, they don't know what words mean. Yeah, I kicked the gums to the curb in this Pachua because it doesn't work. But drinking stuff works better, it seems. So yeah, we'll get through it together. Their war on words is just costing them vocabulary. It's just it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense, folks.
We no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in the next phase of our lives, say Bill and Melinda Gates in a joint statement on their divorce. Have you ever heard more ridiculous boomer nonsense than that? What does that mean? We no longer believe we can grow together. You're in your 60s. Bill is. I think Melinda Gates is in her 50s.
It's called a relationship. They just don't feel like they can grow together anymore in a relationship. Like, this should not be the hardest thing. Like, I do not get this.
Lady
I
never
do not
tells.
understand.
What is grow together? Like you're some 14-year-old child in school?
It's called growing a relationship. Oh gosh.
Oh, look,
He doesn't get it.
Myself. I gotta grow. No, you're married. You have children. You more than maybe any other married couple in the world, or more than the vast majority, have built something together. But now you need to grow together. What does that mean in the next? What is the next phase of your life?
I don't know. Not being married. That's the next phase. Like I don't. I don't know why he doesn't get it, folks. I really don't. I'm perplexed.
You know, the next 20 years, what are you going to do? You're going to start going to Woodstock or something? You're going to really explore and just no, man, you're married. Like cut it out. Ridiculous boomer nonsense. The boomers did this. I'm serious. No fault divorce was not permitted anywhere in this country until 1969.
The horror, I guess. Okay, Yeah, I got a comment here. I'm gonna catch up, folks. I'm not in the catch up man anymore. Okay, I don't have the red hat. I got the black hat, the black and gold hat, if you will. You don't understand what growing together in a relationship means. Like, I don't even like. I don't know if you're married. I'm not married, but even I know enough what that mean. What they're saying, what that means. Bad grammar. Sorry, folks. Oh boy. Going can mean a lot of things. I'm changing as I go in a relationship, which is changing as you go. Also, like growing trust, growing boundaries. Like seriously, I have really nothing else to say here. It's like with the other one. It's like with the transition thing. Like I know you're stupid, Michael Knowles, but I don't know that you're this stupid. I don't know that you're this stupid. Listen, was I stupid? No, I was homeschooled. But being homeschooled is not an excuse for me to have bad grammar back then. But would I say he's stupid now? Listen, as a Christian person, I've grown in holiness, sanctification, things of that nature. So at least for me, I try not to say people are stupid unless if they deserve it. Like some cases, RFK. I'm an autistic person. What you said about autistic people, the best thing I can say is when a moron and an idiot have a baby, they name it stupid.
Until 1969.
And the reason why I would is because that's what Jesus did with the leaders who should or who know better or should know better because they're leaders. They are leading people. RFK is the top of health. So yes, I do say his comments on autism, which I think source of skeptic had a point. It's a eugenicist statement. If you really gotta point there, the reason why is because it's basically saying autistic people are the lowest in the gene pool in a sense, which is just not true. We can pay taxes. It's just maybe some of us are libertarians, like seriously. And all the other nonsense that he just spewed in the fact that he thinks he's gonna by this September, folks, be ready for the reveal of the truth of what causes autism, the thing that's so contagious and horrible and terrible. All right, bud. For some right wingers there, Elon Musk is autistic. For me, and especially a lot of people on the left who are especially autistic, let's just say he might not be the best representation of autism. To be blunt. Yeah, again, the best thing I can say there is when an idiot and a moron have a baby, they call it stupid.
1969, California, of course, becomes the first state to create no-fault divorce. Before that,
it was way harder and most likely not so good. My opinion on no-fault divorce, I guess, I have two perspectives because of how I believe there is certain separation of spiritual and physical things. The best way I can say this is with the hymn of the Republic, where it says, Christ died to make men holy, let us fight to make man free, while God is marching on, which I do believe to an extent was a little nod of secularism, but pretty much not like a, God, you do this and just stay away. It's more of, this is generally God's role here, and this is generally the government's role here. There is a separation. What do we have to do with the outside? Let God judge the outside. We must judge the inside. So it seems like there is just some type of separation between church and state. I'm just saying, it's just true. It's just true. I've talked a lot more about that. I think the episode before last, I might have it here, possibly. I don't know. I might. I talked a little bit more about what that actually, what separation of church and state really is, really. Either was that or some other episode of my podcast, if I'm correct. But the point is, even scripturally and theologically, there seems to be some type of separation. So for me, this is to get to here. My view of no-fault divorce is that, from a Christian perspective, I think Jesus Christ kind of said it himself due to the hardness of people's hearts and also sexual immorality, which might not be as physically seen. And I think sexual immorality also means rape or things of that nature, and the wife has to clean herself up to make sure everything's fine. But I think even Jesus Christ, if he somehow came back in a sense, he would say, "Oh, and these things as well." I thought it was a given. Like I didn't think I needed to say murder or rape is also rape. I thought when I said sexual immorality, adultery, things of that nature, you guys kind of get. Oh, well, today it's a little bit different because there's a lot of other things and also hardness of people's hearts. And it's like, yeah, right, yeah, maybe um. So that's my perspective.
We were just talking about romance and consent and marriage. Well, marriage is getting an overhaul even as you get into marriage. Tiffany is releasing their first ever men's engagement rings.
Seems like everything's still in place. I don't. Was that supposed to be a bad thing? Huh. All right.
So typically for those youths in the audience or those people who have remained single,
Yeah, that
who
still
have
works.
been living under a rock, when you get married, what happens? The man goes out and buys a ring, and he proposes marriage, and the woman either accepts or smacks him across the face and says no, and then she puts the ring on, and then you go get married.
And sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the woman goes on one knee and says, "Do you want to marry me?" And he says either yes or no. No earthquake here. Huh, interesting. Huh. It's like it really doesn't matter, really. Huh, interesting.
And then you can now both parties wear a wedding ring, though that wasn't always the case. But only the woman wears the engagement ring. Well, that's changing. I have had, so I've got to watch my words here. I've had some liberal friends of mine who are men engage in this process already. The men have worn
I don't get it.
an engagement ring. Because they say, well, if the woman wears an engagement ring, I should wear an engagement ring too. Because men and women are exactly the same and completely indistinguishable. So,
Depending on the situation, like when it comes to a wedding ring, sure. I don't. I guess I don't care really because I'm not getting married. I'm not married. No, it's mainly because I don't care. I think most people, honestly, like they might be like, "Hey, tradition, things of that nature, trad," but like. I think really you point down to it, it's like, does it really matter? And I think for most people in here in America, in the US of A, I would say they're like, nah, it doesn't. We love each other. It doesn't really matter who gets the ring and who goes on one knee. I mean, yeah, I understand the reason why it's usually the men because the men are in this way most at least in the extreme conservative or at least conservative like way is being vulnerable or the only time being really vulnerable they're going down on one knee and proposing and asking her, will you do this? And usually, in an extreme conservative or conservative sense, when she says "I do," that means she is submitted to his authority completely, or in a complementarian way, which I'm for the second, in a sense, and they possibly live happily ever after, in a sense. Not in Disney way, not in the Disney way, but in a reality way. I think I understand why that's the case, but I think things are different now. Not just different, but I think better to the point it's like going on one knee, anybody can do that. Anybody can say, will you marry me? Anybody can say, I do or I don't. Again, two consenting adults here. We're talking about two consenting adults because right wingers are perverted sometimes. They can't understand sometimes when I say something. They can't have an inference of, oh, he's talking about two consenting adults already. That should be the thing, improv. That should be there already. That should be not talked. I don't need to say that. I shouldn't need to say that. Right wingers, like, seriously, like, let's be good faith here. It's like, inference. Inference. Oh, Occam's okay, yeah, like that should be a given. But for some right wingers, and especially sadly even Christians, they're like, what? Well, who was? Like, again, trying to mug the idea, not the person, because people can change ideas, not really. Not really. So for me, it's like I think in a complementarian sense, more I guess egalitarian complementarian, a little bit of a mixture of both. I think in this sense of proposal, anybody can do it and it's fine because you both love and submit to one another. But maybe the woman submits to the husband a little bit differently, and with the man loves a little bit her wife, a little bit. He loves her wife a little bit differently, and maybe vice versa. Again, egalitarian complementarian or complementarian egalitarian, depending on the situation. One goes first, but the other one is second, or vice versa. And I think that's the best Christian sense of husband and wife. Not necessarily all men and women. It's mainly husband and wife there.
To do whatever the man does, the woman has to do. Okay, I don't agree with that approach. Don't agree with that anthropology, but I understand it. I understand the reasoning here. Now, Tiffany, by coming out and saying, here is a men's engagement ring, they're taking this beyond a sort of personal eccentricity and saying this could be a new social tradition. This could
also it's capitalistic, which is not necessarily the root of all evil, folks. It's like people want to buy this. It's going to be a trend, and we want to be the first ones in the table of a lot of money because some people like this. This is the part where it's like this isn't necessarily private because to get a ring and most people are like, oh, is that for your husband or wife? And they're mostly gonna say, yeah. Surprise them. It's like that's public a little bit, but your proposal is still private. People are not going to know if they say I do or not unless you go back to the store with the ring. They're like, oh, rejected, ghosted, didn't work out. Yeah, well, maybe try next time, buddy. It depends, but it's a mixture with that. It's both private and public. So, again,
a new aspect of proposing. Now, the men's engagement rings, it's called the Charles Tiffany, and it includes emerald cut and round diamonds up to 5 carats. So I don't know, you'd have to be pretty blingy here. Who is this aimed at? For the straight fellas in the audience, would you wear the Charles Tiffany engagement ring? Probably not, right?
It depends. I don't know if I'm going to get married and that's going to be none of you guys' business, or what if it becomes your business. Maybe, hypothetical, maybe not. Doesn't matter because why would it? Why?
But I don't think straight guys are the audience here. Maybe some feminist guys who think that men and women have to do exactly the same thing. But
there might even be conservative guys or libertarian guys who are like, this isn't a bridge too far for me. It might be for some other people, but not for me, because I think love is not really who gets down on one knee. It's the point is not who gets down on one knee. The point is of if somebody's going to go down on one knee.
It's probably the reason for this is because we have now, from the Supreme Court, redefined marriage to include not just monogamous unions of husbands and wives, but also monogamous unions of the same sex.
And that's bad because, well, shut up. It's not really bad, actually.
And so because of this, if you're a man proposing to another man, it's a little, who's going to do it? Which guy is going to do it? If you're now saying that we are going to redefine and expand the institution of marriage to include monogamous same-sex unions, it does raise a lot of questions.
It really does. It's like, oh, it's just going to be for somebody of the same sex. Everything else literally stays the same. It might be I pronounce you man and husband, or husband and husband, or man and man, not really a big change there. It's like okay, changes in the lyrics, like not so not the end of the world really. But I think we all deserve a commercial break, shall we? I think we all deserve a commercial break. I'll be right back, folks. All right, this is not just some sponsor or Patreon plug. It's about following Him, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you want to follow Him, if you want to give your life to Christ today, prayer is in the description down below. But if you're a backslider and you want to rededicate your life to Christ, prayer is in the description down below for you too. But if you want the gift, the free gift that Jesus Christ can only give, Jesus is the only Holy Ghost baptizer. If you want to be baptized in the Holy Ghost, the evidence of speaking in tongues, prayer is in the description down below. It might be way up there, way down there in the description. Just depends on how long my description is for my show, my podcast. So, yeah, if you want to give your life to Christ, or if you're back there, you want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want to ask the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, those prayers are in the description down below. But if you forgot about it, or if you're wrestling with it and you finally decide, okay, I am going to get saved, or okay, I am going to rededicate my life to Christ, or okay, I am going to be baptized in the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, all of those three prayers are in all of my videos. First one to this one and to the ones to come, all of those three prayers are in the description down below for all of my videos. So if you do forget, or if you are wrestling with it, and you finally decided, okay, I am going to do this, whether it's giving your life to Christ, rededicating your life to Christ, or being baptized in the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, those three prayers are always in the description down below in every video that I make. And I'm back.
Because sexual difference has always been important to marriage. It's always been at the heart of marriage. Even just at the...
No, not really. It's mainly about... it could be via sex, the marriage bedroom, yes, sex could play a part of that, but not really. And of course, the two become one flesh. I'm not ignoring that, but I'm just saying, in a general sense, it's not. I don't think it's mainly about the sexual body parts of mankind. Is that I think it's just two people, mainly in a sense, joining, becoming one flesh, like Adam and Eve did, which I think, in my opinion, does in some way include gay people. But I talked a lot more about LGBTQ plus. I already gave you the video card there, so we can move on. The point is, at least for me, especially governmentally and societally, it's not. That's the physical issue. There's not really an issue there. There would be a spiritual issue if you're a Christian. You might think this is not godly natural. I think that's a better way of saying it than natural, because in nature you do see same-sex animals mating. So I wouldn't say natural, but I would say ungodly natural, because there's God's nature, and then there's this nature being the fallen nature of man. And of nature, too, of animals and plants and things of that nature. So that's what I would say in that sense. I would say that that's a spiritual heart issue. We shouldn't dictate that by our government and physically by force. That's why we got Stonewall, which Stonewall was correct. Stonewall had to happen because there was a breaking point.
Basic question: who's going to propose the marriage and who's going to accept the marriage? You have to try to...
You gotta figure that out. It might be surprising that both of them go down one knee. I think that'll be very, in this way, cute and romantic. I think Hallmark, for its... Yes, it has its crimes against humanity for all their Christmas stuff every single month. But other than that, it's like that would have been an interesting twist. The proposal, who does it? I think that'll be funny and cute and romantic and just nice. But Michael Knowles would burn and shiver at the thought of watching something so hideous as that. Apparently,
Work that sort of thing out. Who gets the ring, and do we both get the ring?
I don't know. Does it matter? It's like okay, like the sky's not falling. Okay, maybe because it's too woke. Because blue sky's blue.
I've pointed out on this show, and other conservatives have pointed this out too, that the transgender ideology undermines the homosexual rights ideology, and
how? In what way? Try to steal a man before he gets into it. Point is that the point being from conservatism is that they thought the sexual revolution, letting gay people get married, things of that nature, was all about the sex. Even though, even then, it wasn't about two private parts going at it in the bedroom. It was about just loving each other and not having to get lynched over it. That was it, and this is the point. Conservatives just miss the plot of it all. They think a lot about the body parts for some weird reason because they believe that's the basic thing, because they believe in reproduction being the consent of the deal. Consent might be great, but reproduction is just better. To where it becomes forced birth, not pro-life, but pro-forced birth, which could lead to child marriage and marital rape being good. What do you have? Christian articles of marital rape being good, basically. They are basically saying it doesn't exist, even though it does exist. Because conservatives really care more about the reproduction and not that much about the love and the consent, which can go too far. Same thing with the consent. BDSM. A thing that I think, if we understood the difference between liberty and licentiousness, like Michael Knowles, we wouldn't really have to even be a category in the hub. I think it's, again, how far you'll go is the word of the day, folks. Or night, or evening, or whenever you're watching this. The point is, since they believe that it was mainly the sex stuff, gender makes no sense when it comes to being trans, because it's basically, at least in their minds, trying to be from one sex to another, because they believe sex and gender are not just correlative but causal. So they believe that being gay and being trans are contradictory, and being trans somehow undermines being gay, even though it really doesn't in real life. It just doesn't.
Undermines them because gay rights is very simple, right? We're born this way. Some boys like girls, some boys like boys, and there's really nothing we can do to change that desire, so society should be more accepting of that. Okay, totally understand that. And then the transgender ideology comes in and says, actually, there's no such thing as boys or girls, and boys can become girls and girls can become boys, and everything's mutable.
Wait. If boys can become girls and girls become boys, there's still girls and boys. Even somewhat today, but especially during my more radically conservative days, even then I would say there's still two genders, because you're transitioning either from one or to the other, but then non-binary becomes a thing, so then it's more so of three, and that's it, at least for me. Tree gender doesn't exist, that's a category error, and if need be, get some help, or if need be, don't force it on other people by the state to recognize you as a T10 or tree trans, okay?
Well, that so much for the born this way, so much for the you can't change that, so much for the orientation, that undercuts it. But there is one area.
How, if in that LGBTQ plus, gender and sex are correlative but not causal, one is your biological traits, biological information, things of that nature, and then the other one is your social label, your category, people say to you, ma'am or sir, or etc. And conservatives don't see that distinction between sex and gender, well, as more left-leaning or leftists or progressives do. Libertarians don't, but liberals, I think, do somewhat, but even then, leftists think that liberals are the devil himself, so,
Where the two link up. And that is on the redefinition of marriage, because if the argument for the redefinition of marriage, which you saw from the Supreme Court, is that M plus W equals M plus M, then M has to equal W. They have to be indiscernible. They have to be exactly the same.
I think, okay, if man and woman equals man and man, then therefore man is woman? This is why we need the Department of Education, folks.
And if that is the case, then you're going to see a lot more social rituals, such as the Tiffany men's engagement ring. You're going to see a social push to take away that which is particular and peculiar to men and that which is particular to women. It's all going to have to be the same. But anyone who's ever been in a marriage knows that it's not the same. I've got my cute little newborn kid at home. Could I nurture that kid? No. To a degree, I can. I can play with him. I can kiss him. I can say, hey, buddy, and I can have a nice time. And I can even give him a bottle every now and again. But I cannot provide for that baby what sweet little Elisa can provide for that baby. Because sweet little Elisa is a lady, and I am a grunting, knuckle-dragging brute. And the relationship of a baby, of any person, to his mother is different than the relationship to his father.
And that I still agree with to an extent, but I think it still somewhat figures in characteristics because men can be nurturing, but will never have that biological trait of that nurturing of a mother via breastfeeding, obviously, and vice versa. That I don't, for guys, you don't have to be the grunts. You don't have to be the knuckle dragging, window licking grunts. You could be the man, the guy, the top dog. That's you don't want to degrade yourself to that. Then you have the sex purity, the false purity to where men are just too wild, but women are blamed for everything apparently because Jesus didn't say so. You've always said the opposite. Okay, you're Christian. Okay, it doesn't have to be that way. But if Michael Knowles wants that to be, fine. The government should crack down on him unless if it becomes their business via child abuse, things of that nature. And I don't think he is. So calm down. No swatting. None of that nature. Yes, he has bad ideas, but he's not abusing his child that I know of. Okay.
It's the way it is, and no amount of social engineering is ever going to change that. And by the way, by
the way, actually, thank you for reminding me, Michael. By the way, I need to catch up on my notes a little bit here. Okay, men's engagement rings. Your point is, women can go down on one knee as well. They can propose also. And the reason why most men do it is because it shows the humility of the man asking his love to marry him. It was showing the humility of the man kneeling down on one knee and asking for something like marriage to the woman, but we have a better understanding that proposal is humility for anybody, male, female, trans, because that is a moment of change in a person's life, and sometimes to start that is through humility. Now, I'm not saying that people who think that only men should propose is bad necessarily. It's just that for me, I think that it can be men or woman or trans, because to me, it doesn't matter. What matters is that somebody did it, and that's fine to me. And yeah, I think it's just personal preference. Again, don't go too far. It's how far you go with it. If you want that opinion, fine. But then if you want the government to enforce that opinion, that doesn't really help or benefit people, like murder is an opinion, like murder being wrong is an opinion, but we enforce that by the government because most people physically would say yes. But if you think it's a spiritual thing, like God made men to propose, you cannot enforce that thing there because that's spiritual and it doesn't really harm anybody, and most people, if not the majority now, especially nowadays, would disagree with you, and it just will be waste of tax-paying dollars and waste of money and time of training of detecting people who are not doing it your particular way. It doesn't make sense. And another comment is, well, at least Michael Knowles said anthropology, not religion, so I guess that's a plus. it's a win for me. If you don't get it, I should maybe have a video on that there. If not, maybe have it there. And I think that's the last one you guys will have, because I think that's the 5th one. Because if you didn't know, on YouTube, you can only have 5 cars at a time per video. So, if I reference any more videos, all I can say is go to my channel. You should find it there. No. Last comment for now. Sorry that I'm not sorry to burst your bubbles, Mike, but the male and female figures, / characteristics, / personality or personalities, isn't all natural. Yes, there are some biological and even some natural traits of men and women, obviously, but generally speaking, but generally, it's socially, men or okay, but social men or socially male. And women have a socially female characteristic because of the social contracts and some godly structures, depending on your religion, and you know what men and boys used to wear. Dresses, makeup, lipstick, and they weren't clowns. These were gentlemen, and the norm back then was that. So yeah, it's cultural. Also look at other countries. So yeah. Again, bad grammar. I think what I was trying to say is that men are the social male in a sense, and males the biological men in a sense of a way. Men is the social label category that might correlate to male, but does not always cause male. And male is the biological features, traits that we labeled male, like the male private part is male, etc. But it might correlate, but does not cause the man. See what I'm trying to say there? In a sense. I think I've caught up. I think we'll see. I think so.
I don't want to exclude the ladies here. I have had many of my gay friends tell me that when they are in a relationship, the gender roles sort of come out there too. Some guy is a little more like the traditional guy. Some guy is a little more like the traditional girl in the way they interact, in the way they cook, in the way they whatever. Because those things come from nature, and then civilization has developed them. So, of course, there is a...
Not necessarily. No, not really. If I'm correct, men, I think majority were the hunter-gatherers, but maybe not. And I think you can see that via women's shopping. I think they hunt and gather the food, man. So, I don't know if that's necessarily all true, especially now, giving you information. And I think from more information from Pompeii about the wild woman, and some of them were, if I'm correct, hunter-gatherers. Which, again, seeing a woman in a mall or a grocery store, yeah, they hunt and gather. You know, they get food, you know? So, at least for the Homo sapiens, okay? The humanoids, if you will. Femoids, you know, male boys, you know? Point is, it might not be as straightforward there, so I do disagree with that.
A social aspect to our sex, just as there is a biological aspect, but those two things are connected. And in this culture, if we're going to just...
Correlative, but not causal. That's what seems to be the consent, not just the consensus, but the data.
Deny that entirely, then things are going to go a little bit kooky throughout all aspects of the
We're
society.
still here, so...
And we can make ourselves feel better and say, this is all just private. Michael, what do you care? What do you care? Getting back to the...
I do agree. Why do you care? Well, what's the problem? The sky is not falling because it's woke, I guess, and the earthquake's not crumbling. You know, and everything seems to be good. You know, things are still structured, Mike. Why do you care so much?
Exciting incident here. What do you care if Bill and Melinda Gates get divorced? I care quite a lot. I care a lot if anybody gets divorced, because breaking their contract, it's all just private. Michael, what do you care? What do you care? Getting back to the inciting incident here. What do you care if Bill and Melinda Gates get divorced? I care quite a lot. I care a lot if anybody gets divorced, because that's people breaking their contract and their pledge, not just to one another and not even just to God. I suppose that's between the parties involved there, but they're breaking a pledge to me. They're breaking a pledge to society.
No, they didn't break a pledge to me because I didn't know them, and that's the problem. It's still personal because, listen, it might have been broken to the family and friends of the Gateses. That I would agree, but not to me. I do care because they are talking about it and it's sad, but I don't care in the sense of when you broke that contract also to me. No, I'm not even in this. I don't even know Bill Gates. It's surprising, but he does not pay my bills, folks. He doesn't pay my taxes. I wish he did, but he doesn't. I still have not gotten that check from Soros, nor from Bill Gates, so.
Breaking a pledge to their children. They're breaking a pledge to the whole culture that they will do their part.
In a sense, yes, but mainly they broke the pledge to those around them because those around them were in the wedding. I wasn't at the wedding. I don't think Michael Knowles was at the wedding either. So, no, they didn't really break a pledge to me. No, they didn't break any pledges to me because I didn't pledge. I wasn't in there. I was not touching and agreeing.
I know it's a fallen world and these things happen. But the question is here, are we going to encourage that sort of thing, or are we going to discourage that sort of thing?
What I would say is I wouldn't encourage divorce. I would encourage divorce not being the end all be all. Just like with shame not being the end all be all of somebody's life. I would, in a sensible way, yes, discourage it because it should be a last resort, like abortion and things of that nature, but I wouldn't make it illegal depending on the situation, like abortion, which I talked about that in my channel. So.
And the argument made not just by the left, but made by the right now as well, because the right has adopted the ridiculous libertine redefinition of the whole culture that the left has voiced. Because we've adopted that language, we don't have any philosophical tools at our disposal to argue for the conservation of culture. We can't do it. That's why we don't conserve anything. That's one of the reasons why we don't conserve anything. Private decisions have public consequences.
To an extent, yes, but also sometimes private decisions have private consequences and public decisions have private consequences. It just depends on what the decision is and the consequences thereof. Free will, folks, free will.
This is what you're hearing all the time about the vaccine. This is the central disagreement at the heart of the vaccine issue, the vaccine passports, the whole public health tyranny.
It's not public health tyranny. If that's the case, then seatbelts are a public health tyranny. Medicine is a public health tyranny. Rules of the road are tyranny. Like, seriously, let's Occam's razor, folks.
What degree does the public have the right to say something about your private decisions? To what extent are your private decisions public? Joe Biden.
I think it's when it involves the public. Abortion, parts of marriage, parts of your bedtime with somebody, not sleeping, but more than sleeping. You get what I'm saying. Those things are mainly private, unless if you make it public. Vaccines, owning a gun to an extent, owning a car, getting a license of both of those things are public because you're driving and you have a tool that usually is meant to destroy. So that will usually involve sometimes the public, especially cars. Guns, maybe not so much. It just depends. So it depends. The line is when it involves the public. If it doesn't involve the public, then it really doesn't matter until it does. Like abuse, things of that nature. But if it doesn't, then it's mainly private, and depending on your group, you have a lot of people in that privacy. Maybe because you have a lot of people in the wedding, but not everybody, so not everybody is in the wedding, you know?
Has an important insight about this. He says, if you don't get the vaccine, we're going to die. You're putting people at risk of dying.
Yes, that's just a fact. That is just a fact. And the fact of the matter is, I have two comments I need to catch up with. Married couples slash married people in general don't own you anything. They don't owe me. They don't owe me anything. They owe each other everything because marriage is about when two loving parties come together to form one party and maybe make another party, aka a child. That's one definition. Another is when two loving parties come together by the third party being God to form one party and maybe make another party, aka a child. And one more definition is when a contract between two loving parties who decide to have a life together. These are different, but one, if not a lot of the definitions have the same thing, is that they are together and they don't owe me or you anything unless if they want that. Yeah, basically. And that's how words work with definitions. Then depending on the word, this means that, this particular word, but then in different contexts, the same word might mean this. Like the word play. I'm in a play, I'm playing a video game, I'm playing a movie, Mike, there aren't any anti-marriage people in society and culture in general. Well, no, they are. They are now, actually. They aren't pushing their anti-marriage, and the only anti-marriage is marriages that are non-consensual and marriages that are abusive. You know that much, right? But there are some anti-gay marriage people like you, Michael Knowles, and that's true.
I also want to thank the 105 million Americans of every background who are fully protected from one of the deadliest pandemics in our history. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's one fact I want every American to know. People who are not fully vaccinated can still die every day from COVID-19. Look at the folks in your community who've gotten vaccinated and are getting back to living their lives, their full lives. Look at the grandparents united with their grandchildren, friends getting together again. This is your choice. It's life and death.
This is your choice, life and death.
Yeah, that's true. Do I do this again? I'm looking. Control, Alt, lever. Yeah, everything's still working, good progress. This is just reality of the situation. Where's the problem
there
here?
Are people. He actually made a true statement here. It's a rare fact for Joe Biden. There are people who don't have the vaccine who are dying every day. And therefore, because of the fear of death, he's going to scare you into doing whatever he says.
That's not the fear of death to do what he says. That's the reality of the situation. He literally says, hey, it's a choice. Just saying it's a choice. It's a matter of life and death. You know? I mean, if you're like, you want to go there, atheists have a point now. Because God is just fearing you with death of hell. Because sin leads to death and the wages of sin leads to death. So therefore, if we as Christians talk about that reality, we're just terrorizing. We can do whatever we want to them, which sadly in a lot of cases, if not some cases, if not a lot of cases, churches do use the fear of hell to keep their congregation. But generally speaking, that threat of reality is true. So the threat of reality that Joe Biden is saying here is just reality. He's not threatening anybody, just like God and Christians are not threatening you when they say, hey, you gotta turn to Jesus Christ, or else you will go to hell, and that's just the reality of the situation. That's not a threat. That's the reality of the situation. But there is something I want to let you guys listen to. I think is very important, and sometimes even myself forget to do this very important thing.
Hey, just remind you because I do this
I'll be right
myself
back.
sometimes. I'm like, I really want to see more of this person's content, more of what they do. Though they only do podcast episodes, well, no, at least for me, I have a show and videos. What's his socials like on social media, if you will? I also have the social medias of the socials as well. You can do that. It's quite easy. The best way to remind yourself, hey, I want to see more, is subscribe. Get a notification bell on, like it, share it maybe even, to sort of share what you have just experienced, what you're like, wow, people need what I just realized. This guy's good. Alright? His content's really great, guys. I'm going to share one of his videos to show you guys. Subscribe to him. That's the best way to get the latest things that this person does. Which is true. And if you want to know more of, say, hot takes on social medias, the social medias besides YouTube's, you can find the link to all of my other social media stuff in the description down.
And we're back.
Taking the arch libertarian position here that the government never has anything to say about vaccines. I'm not taking that. I'm also not taking the leftist position that you all need to get this vaccine immediately. I'm taking the prudential position that you should assess risk to yourself and society and make a reasonable decision. I guess that
In that to an extent that's true, because some people, and it's true that the vaccine might not be so good for you because you might be allergic to it, or depending on the doses of the vaccine, it might actually cause death. But that's very low, but still bad. Still, it's bad, but we live in the fallen world. The benefit is better than the risk. The benefits outweigh the risk for most people, and yeah, assess your situation, and if you talk to God about it, because God might be like, hey, this vaccine might not actually be good for you because you actually are allergic to it. Things of that nature, and all the exceptions to the rules of taking the COVID vaccine, like with any other vaccine ever, but Trump made it political because reasons, and well, here we are today. And the argument is mainly if you're good and healthy or not so good and healthy, take the vaccine because you can most likely spread it. So it's good to protect yourself to protect others, or protect others to protect yourself. By protecting yourself so you can protect others, good circular reasoning of the vaccine, and outweigh the benefits and risks of society and things of that nature. Taking the vaccine is the best way to go. So, yeah, I do agree, Michael Knowles. You just disagree with the conclusion.
Joe Rogan position. And I know you're not allowed to take that anymore, but that to me seems to make a lot of sense. Prudence is a conservative virtue, even though we seem to have forgotten about it. But I'm going to go further. I think what lies at the heart of Joe Biden's threat here is not the fact that unvaccinated people are dying every day. It's the fact that people are always going to die every day, because people are going to die, because you can't avoid death.
It's not about avoiding death. It's about avoiding unneeded, unjustifiable death, like wasting your life because you didn't want to get stabby stab. Like, seriously, this isn't the existentialist, like, I don't want to die thing. It's more of a don't die in a stupid way, in a sense. Or, like, if you have a car, make sure you know how to drive it. Don't die in a stupid way. If you have a gun, make sure you know what you're doing with that gun so you don't die in a stupid way. Don't die before your time. Ecclesiastes says that. Why shouldn't you die before your time? This is what this is about.
There are certain hard facts about this world that you are not going to escape, no matter whether you give your consent or not. You're probably not going to consent to die, but you're going to die anyway. Someday. We all are. This is a finite world. Okay? And the liberal...
Nobody is really saying no to that, except for dictators, and that's basically except for dictators most of the time, or people who trying to say death is an illusion. So,
in society wants to deny that fact of death, and it gets people so terrified of it that they will give away all their rights and shut down the whole country for a year and a half because of a virus.
Yes, a virus that took, what was it? Millions of people only in America. Those were people's families. So, a virus, come on, the Black Plague, come on. The iron lung, come on, get some oil for it, come on.
Because of a virus.
It's not that bad.
It's not great, but it's not worse than many other pandemics that we've gone through. But they're willing to give it all away because of their terror of death and because of their shock and because of their delusion that they are totally 100% in control of their own lives. They own their own lives. They can do whatever they want. They can, as long as it's consensual, they can do whatever they want, darn it. No. You didn't choose to come into this world. You're probably not going to choose to come out of this world. A lot of things are going to happen to you in the meantime that are unjust. I think this has to do with a lot of the crazy leftist entitlement culture and the burning down of the country over the grievance politics, is people don't recognize it. There is injustice in this world, and you're going to have to deal with that. That's a fact of life. And demagogues, such as Dr. Fauci and such as Joe Biden, are
the demagogues of a doctor. Guys, really think about this. The demagogue of a doctor. Talk to Texas about what they're going on with measles. I'm sure they would agree with you.
Avoiding that neurosis, that delusion, that refusal to recognize basic facts of reality.
That's not what's going on there. So I have the fact of reality that hypothetically I have cancer. I guess I shouldn't really try to prevent it or try to get some chemo or try to even fight through it or even overcome it. I'm not gonna do anything like that. So just the situation is I got cancer, I just got it. No, that would be stupid. For lack of a better word, that would be stupid to say that. No, it's somewhat preventable. It's not curable, but it's, you can prolong your life. Why should you die before your time? This is not trying to escape death. This is about not dying inappropriately and at the wrong time.
To control your...
Alright, and my comment about death is this. Michael Knowles. Seriously, Michael Knowles. To you, dear Michael Knowles. It's not about ignoring death. It's about ignoring death that's not needed. That's the difference. And the problem with you, Michael Knowles, is that you don't understand that people aren't afraid of dying necessarily. In an unhealthy way, I should say. It's that people are afraid of how they die and when they die. If you said most people are going to die sleeping and they look like they're at peace and they're in peace, it's still sad, but at least they're at peace. But if you say most people are going to die by getting shot or other violent deaths, that's a worse death, a terrible death that carries a lot more weight because they died in a cruel death. So at the end of the day, everybody knows that they're going to die, sadly, but they don't want to die the wrong way. As in, die by gunshot or by any other means. They don't want to go to somewhere else worse where they can die, things of that nature as well. If they believe that, and that's why if they believe that, and that's why I think for me, you and everybody else needs Jesus. I think that's why me, you, and everybody else needs Jesus, so when we die, we will have a guarantee that we're going to go to heaven if you believe in that, or if you want to believe in that, believe in Jesus, yes. And, you don't, if you don't want to, the warning is hell. That's not, that's not a threat, that's just a warning of reality of the situation, which I talked more about hell in my channel already. And my comment here, if we think like Michael Knowles here, there's always injustice, you just have to deal with it, then why do we have laws about rape? It's going to happen. Why not just let rape happen? Why? What's the deal here? There's injustice, just let injustice do its thing, because it's going to happen anyways. Why do we have conditions and boundaries and social contracts and godly structures? Why bad things are going to happen? When bad things, because bad things are going to happen. Why have all that? Why have that? Well, why try to stop sin? It's going to happen. So why did Jesus die on the cross? Really, why? Maybe because yes, there's evil in this world, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't let them just happen. If such when we can do something about it, or stop it, or prevent it, or reduce it. And we have a chance, and sometimes a solution to stop the problems we have now. That's why we have a justice system. It does need a lot of changes, but we still have one, and yes, sin is going to happen, but there is a possibility that we don't have to sin, really, or want to willfully sin. That's why Jesus Christ died on the cross and rose again on the third day. It's because there's a way to stop sinning. Like, it's no big deal, even though it is, obviously. Just because some people are going to go to heaven doesn't mean that we don't preach about heaven and how you go there. Just because some people are going to go to hell, that does not mean that we don't preach about hell and how not to go there. So I will say this. Michael Knowles, I think, would agree to an extent, but I think you would agree to an extent what I just said about death and sin and all, but I think how far he's going, he needs to go a little bit back. He needs to pull it back a little. Again, this was not a threat, this was a warning of the facts of reality. And I think how far you go with it, you won't see that until you turn back and be like, wait, hold up here. Maybe this is not a threat but a warning. I think it's the same thing for some who are not Christian and who are atheists or of a different religion. It's not a threat, it's a warning of the fact of reality spiritually. I wouldn't enforce it governmentally because it's a spiritual issue. So with that, prayerfully, you will at least consider the choice of heaven, the choice of Jesus Christ, and not hell. And you have been warned. In a good way, not a threat, but a warning. And you don't have to fear death if you're a Christian. Rededicate your life to Christ, or get saved and have eternal life after death.